This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
We are talking with Anne Bremner today. She's a trial attorney and one of the nation's most recognized legal analysts. We're talking, of course, the big topic, Daybell's, Lori Daybell specifically. And I want to talk about extreme beliefs. At the very beginning, it was brought up in opening statements. This is a case about money, power, extreme beliefs, and it's something we already knew about going in, these extreme beliefs. But as this trial continues to slowly move forward, the extreme beliefs, they get pretty extreme. I'm wondering, is this going to help or hurt Lori in her defense in terms of in the eyes of the jury when they look at this at the end of the day going, is Lori someone who was brainwashed? Is this someone who, just her mental capacity just somehow allowed her to go along with such horrendous thinking and decision making, and she was a victim as well? Or is it going to damn her even more based on the actions that she took very clearly after she already knew her children were likely dead?
Well, and I don't know if you watched that documentary on her, but she certainly had some extreme beliefs. And, what we've heard so far in the trials, that's not the way she used to be. So You're going to say, will that help her? Well, jurors may say, she was part of almost a cult. A small cult, but a cult, and maybe not attribute to her responsibility. But the problem is, as you know, in Idaho, they don't have the insanity of defense available for her or mental defense. So she's going with alibi. And so I think anybody in their right mind would look at her and say, on the conspiracy counts, you had these extreme beliefs that's connected with your children being gone now and a lot of other people being gone. And to us, that points directly at you.
There was some interesting testimony that just recently came out. Melanie Gibb, one of their friends, probably one of the people who knew them better than almost anyone, testifying and talking specifically about why Lori didn't get divorced from Charles Vallow, why Chad didn't get divorced from his wife. And the reasoning that Melanie gave as far as what she's saying that Lori was telling her is that it would have not have been, I'm paraphrasing here, it wouldn't have been right with God. It wouldn't have put Chad in an exalted state with God. So that's why he didn't divorce her. Now, it doesn't go into saying at this moment, as far as this trial going on, that the choice was let's go murder them.
I know.
But it seems like that seems to be the loophole almost that they found, because I saw that. I'm like, oh, well, that was their loophole. They, in terms of their religious belief, if they got divorced, that wouldn't have been right with God. But if they died somehow, then that kind of takes that culpability off the table, if you will.
Wow. That's really some extreme thinking, right? It's, remember in the Scott Peterson trial when Lacey's mom pointed at Scott and said, why didn't you get a divorce? Yeah. It seems to be that at least that's legal to go to the extreme of homicide and showing basically that you're still pure because you didn't get divorced is kind of crazy thinking.
It is, but the thing is, but it's all put under the the guise of religious beliefs, and obviously Lori and Chad far further gone than like one would look at with Catholicism or something of that nature. But all of them, they all have a certain element of magical thinking to them, and certain tenets of belief that unless you are following those specific tenets, it would look crazy, and it would look like the reasoning is not based on reality or dealing with reality on reality's terms. When you have someone like this friend that's testifying, this Melanie Gibb, that knows so much about them, that did participate in a lot of the extreme thinking, or at least followed along, maybe not necessarily participated in acting things out, but was someone there going, yeah, I hear you, I believe zombies, okay. Is this going to be teaching us any sort of lessons at the end of the day in terms of the company people keep in extreme beliefs and how dangerous they can actually be. Because for the longest time, we look at these religious sects and such and go, oh, well, that's their religion. They can do whatever they want. And until, horrible things happen and everybody ends up in court or dead. But there seems to be a lot of this that goes on out there. Are we, as a general public, going to learn anything from this and the enabling of beliefs like this?
Well, I think it's important to look at, the dangers of really what would be a cult. I mean, you can say it's religious thinking, but look at like Jim Jones or Charles Manson or Heaven's Gate or, any of these cults, and they can say they're a religion, but when you've got dangerous beliefs, then, you've got to kind of stand back and say, this is dangerous. And what kind of signs should we look for? I mean, Jim Jones in Guyana. I mean, how many people died there? Charles Manson.
Sure.
Those girls followed him, and some are dead, but they're in prison. And that happened in 1969.
Yeah. It was way back there.
Yeah, right. So and they were actually up for the death penalty, but then the death penalty was ruled unconstitutional. So they were very lucky not to receive that in the early 70s. But I'm just saying, you see these cults over the years, and they can be dangerous because you have kind of a blind following. The other one is David Koresh. I mean, you just kind of look around at these and say they've crossed a line. They've crossed a major line.
And with this case, I know it's an interesting one because it's difficult to find jurors that wouldn't have known at least something about the case. So there's been a lot of judgment about this trial about Chad and Lori Daybell over the last several years. And you have the book Justice in the Age of Judgment. When we started going into this case and into the trial, did you feel that there would be too much already pre-judgment going on, and the likelihood of a guilty verdict would be, and obviously we're not there yet, would be rendered because of the already pre-judgment that's out there? Or is this one of those cases where reality is even stranger than the previous reality that we thought we knew? I mean, I was going to say fiction, but it's not, because we already knew it so much, but as we dig deeper, it just gets weirder.
Yeah, this case was confusing, I think, in terms of trying to connect the dots of the different crimes and murders in this case. Remember, for a long time, it was basically she was in custody because she wasn't saying where the kids were. So we've had to kind of follow this thing, like, what? I mean, she's saying, like, she's just not going to say. And everyone's like, why don't you say where the kids are? Jeez.
Yeah.
And we know where they're buried in Chad's backyard. But I think it's great that the judge is not allowing cameras. And I loathe to say that because I really believe cameras should be in the courtroom. But this case, needs to be protected. And given, because it's been kind of a steady drumbeat of adverse publicity for both of them.
Sure.
And so I think that was the right thing to do. I can't imagine a jury. Well, let me say this. She's not directly connected in the evidence I've seen so far. To the deaths, but she certainly is circumstantially, and certainly there's conspiracy bases for a finding of conspiracy, and there's a number of different bases for the conspiracy counts, as you know. But this is a tough case for the prosecutors, and now the death penalty is off the table, which was a major win for Lori Daybell. I mean, she has some defense, I guess. That we'll see how it plays out, but it's not exactly a direct evidence case that I've seen so far.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast
With Tony Bruschi.
Anne Bremner, one of the nation's most recognized legal analysts. Thank you for joining us on talking about Lori Vallow Daybell. I want to get Anne's thoughts on how all of this is going to be affecting Chad Daybell when it comes to his trial. And is he going to make an appearance in this one to try and save his own ass in some way, shape, or form? Press subscribe so you don't miss that part of the conversation. It's coming up on the feed. My name is Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.